This year was my first time gardening and I wanted something to track my progress. What went well, what didn't, and everything in between. Now going into my fall garden, I'm going to take what I've learned, what I wish I knew, and start the perfect journal. Hello beautiful, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Caitlin if you are new here. I want to have a garden journal that is quick and easy to maintain. It needs to be manageable for my time in the garden, and that is exactly what I'm going to be showing you today. So if you are interested in that, just keep on watching. Starting this garden journal means that I get to pick a brand new notebook to use. Here I have this Archer and Olive notebook in the color sage green, a little bit of green, a little yellow, with a beautiful embossed mushroom on the front. The notebook comes with this elastic band. It has 160 GSM white paper, which I love for doing my watercolor, 2 bookmarks, and then at the back we also have a little pocket to stash all of those extra little bits. If you are interested in buying anything from Archer and Olive, I actually have a discount code for 10% off that you can use at checkout. Whenever I'm starting a brand new book, I find that it is really difficult to write on the left-hand side. So for me to get around this, all I do is I put 2 washi tapes on that side so I can actually put pressure down when I'm writing. For this book belongs to section, I thought it would be good to dedicate it to the garden. Really, I know it's my journal, but it's going to be for the garden. Adds a lot less pressure writing the word garden out versus my name. I always overthink it and it becomes the stressful page, but this time it wasn't. Whenever I flip that page over, I do end up just taping it down because I find that with the way the book is structured, like a lot of journals, that first page with the gluing just doesn't always look the nicest when you try to write on it. Since I'm going to be using this book for multiple years to come, I wanted this cover page to say what year it was going to be. So I designed this in Procreate using a bunch of stock images to create this pattern. I printed it off and then I am going to divide the page in half. So I just wanted to fold it and then ended up cutting it in half with some scissors. And I am also taping it down using my crafter's tape. Everything will be linked just in the description box if you are curious what specific supplies I am using and want to buy some for yourself. Because I created this pattern myself, it's a repeating pattern, so if I just cut it down the center or really anywhere, I could just glue it together perfectly on either the left or right side of the page. What I wanted to do is put 2022 garden in the middle, and what I find when you have words or papers spread across the page, it is sometimes difficult to have them not crinkle when you fold it. So just cutting things in half make it a little bit easier and look a little nicer. For 2022, I had this overview page that I wanted to have like a quick snapshot of what my year looked like. So when I am going back through every single year that I'm doing, I can see what I did well, what I failed at, and what I want to try for the following year. To make that back title, I just ended up taping on craft paper the word 2022 overview. I've done this a lot in different Plan With Me videos, showing you how to create this on scrap pieces of paper, and I will have all of those videos just linked up above for you if you're interested in seeing different Plan With Me videos. On the left hand side of the page, I am going to be focusing this side specifically on this year. So things that I planted in the spring versus the fall. Since I have 2 different gardens and succession planting, I wanted to make sure that those 2 categories were divided. This spring, I ended up planting 6 different vegetables and herbs, and 2 were a total fail. And then in the fall, I ended up planting 6. So far, they've actually gone really well. So fingers crossed that I get a harvest from both of those. My thoughts are I'm going to be leaving to successes and to change. So there's a couple of things that worked out really well and a couple of things that did not. So that would end up in that section. On the right page is things that I want to do for next year. So different things that I'd like to try or different things I'd like to research. Try would most likely be different vegetables, herbs that I want to add to my list. I know I can't have all of them, but that might not stop me. On the bottom here, I have space just for little photos. And then on the side, because I want to make every single page that I do easier to reference, I'm coming in and I'm creating tabs. So I am actually creating 5 tabs because there are 6 pages that I want to go to. So whenever you're creating tabs, always have one less tab for the number of pages that you want. So I want 6 pages, I'm creating 5 tabs. To make coloring in things a little bit easier, I'm using one of those scrap pieces of paper and I am alternating the tabs between dark and light, just using that gray Tombow brush pen that I have been using on my overview page. You can see here that once everything is flipped over, that light and dark alternating pattern is present, so it just makes it a little easier to flip to certain pages. Next up is my seed information. This is all of the plants that I am going to be starting inside the house. So before spring comes, if you are not a gardener or if you are interested in gardening, you have a spring frost date. So you can't actually plant anything outside in the ground if it is frost sensitive. So that means all of the seeds you are starting inside the house to make sure you get the maximum amount of harvest in the spring and fall seasons. That is what this page is for. I am going to be breaking down the page into a chart type layout with 2 columns on the left-hand side and 3 columns on the right. The first is going to be for the plant type or variety. Second column is the day that I actually start the plant inside the house. What I learned this year is that not every seed has the same indoor start date because they grow at different rates. Obviously, I should have thought of that, but it is something that I've learned this year. Next, I have the number of seeds planted because not all of the seeds I plant grew. So that is what the next column is, how many grew. And then finally, that date is the transplant date, so when I move them from the inside of the house to the outside of the house. I do just have a blog post written and I go through a lot of these pages in a little bit more depth and my experience with how I would use these pages as well on my current level as a beginner gardener. So if you're interested in that, just make sure to check out the description box. Next up is my plant log. Very similar to my seed log or my seed information, I want to track the plants once they're outside. That is where this spread comes in. I'm creating a very similar layout to my seed log, except this time what I'm going to have is 2 columns on the left hand and then 4 columns on the right hand. Same thing, I have the variety here. The second column is just going to be for the day it was transplanted outside, or if it was a direct plant into the ground. So the seeds were put into the ground outside without being inside, if that makes sense. Next, I have the number planted versus the number grew. And then I have the harvest, so the date that it's going to happen, and the quantity that I actually pulled from one seed. So 1 seed of tomato could make a whole bunch of tomatoes. That is just what this log looks like. Next up is my seeding log. This is a little bit different than my seeding information because I want to keep track of the details of the seeds. So when you buy a packet of seeds, on the back it tells you things like the number of days it takes to germinate, how far to plant it within the soil, does it need to start inside, outside, all of that stuff. This is what that page is for. I'm going to be referencing this throughout the seasons, so I really want to know the days to germinate versus days to mature. And that is really going to help me figure out when I can plant other varieties of seeds, either indoors or outdoors, to make sure it actually grows and I don't miss out on harvesting any of the plants before the fall or winter frost kills it off. Last spread that I'm going to be creating in my garden journal setup is going to be a plant profile. I'm going to be making this page for every single plant that I seed in the fall and in the spring. I am going to first start off by having this little photo box. I have yet to figure out if I want to do it a photo of the seed package or a photo of the plant once it's grown. So I don't know, let me know what you think in the comment down below. What I did for this is I put in the variety, so the type of plant that it is, the supplier, so who I bought it from, and the price that I bought it at. Just important dates, things when it was planted, germinated, transplanted, first and last harvest, and then my overall thoughts or ratings on the actual seed. Next, I have the instructions of what is on that back package, again, how deep to sow the seed, and then any other suggestions that they put in there. Then this bottom section, I'm gonna have in important information like started from. So how did I start it? Did I start it from seed? Did I actually buy the plant? I was considering doing that this year, but I didn't. I started everything from seed, which is so rewarding. And then how did I start it, indoors or outdoors? I'm going to also put in there things like the sun requirement. So does it need full, partial, or shade? Also, I'm going to do a fertilized section. I have seen that you need to fertilize things once a month. That is what I have here. So I just have 6 dots written out because I can grow in 6 months where I live. This might be a little different for you, so just make sure to adjust based on where you live. Then I have succession planting, so did I do it? Yes or no, and then the dates that I put things in. On the right-hand side, I'm just putting in a section for general notes. This is going to act like a diary log for me, and I have an example of what this would look like filled out on my blog post if you're curious to how exactly I would use this. I did just come back in with my Crayola marker to add in some green colors on the left for the title, and then flipping over the page, you can see here that I actually have a pencil line. So because I'm creating this spread a multiple amounts of times, I still want it to fall under that 5th tab that I made. So I'm going to be transferring all of this information over to this page, which could take a little bit of time. So I actually have a free PDF download for you in the description if you want to use a layout like this. I got a lot of different plants to fill this in for, and I want to make sure that I'm using my time wisely. Here is just a quick flip through of what I set up in my garden journal. Now, I always talk about the importance of customizing your bullet journal to reflect your needs. This is all that I actually need for 2022 because of how I'm starting my bullet journal. But that doesn't mean that this is the only option for you. There are plenty of other spreads that you could use. So I set some up to show you what they look like. Here on the left-hand side, I just have garden projects, things you'd like to get done through the year, a budget on the right-hand side. I have a square foot planner on the left, things like number of seeds per square foot, how to maximize your space. Certain plants don't like to be around each other, so planning all of that out. Next is a seasonal to-do list. Gardening just doesn't happen in the warm months. There's a lot of planning and prepping that goes into it, so that is what this spread would be for the fall and the winter. Next up, I am nowhere near my gardening journey to use this, but I thought it would be important to mention a soil status tracker. If you notice things wrong with your plants, sometimes it could be a result of the soil that you are using. Last is a pest and disease log. If you've watched up until this point of the video, make sure to put a leaf emoji just down in the comments. I'm glad to finally have this all set up and to be able to use it into my garden for the fall. I've really found throughout the spring how helpful gardening has been to my mental health. I do have some mental health spreads on my channel. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll just leave the video over there and up above in the cards. But I will see you next week for another video. Bye!